Good afternoon. Dave Crocker back with you on Chapter 2 of Warriors, Hard Chargers, and Patriots, connecting the little dots to the big dots. I had a great morning. I just wanted to tell you about it. I got into the swimming pool this morning and put 3,500 yards in the water today. I do that every day. Take Sundays off just to rest a little bit. I find exercises I did when I was in the service and well before that to be sort of a cathartic event for me. It allows me, number one, to sort of, take out the rough edges and settle down a little bit, but also to think through my problem sets, whatever the problem sets are, and just come back with a fresher outlook on life. My blood's been refreshed. I've gotten rid of all the bad stuff that's sitting there that's created by sitting in chairs or sitting in desks. But I just feel like I can go for a long period of time after I'm done with those exercise periods. For swimming, it's also sort of a tranquility thing. It's like being alone with your thoughts because it's just you and the tube that is your swim lane, and then the little black line on the bottom. So I get pumped up with it, and I've been doing it. Certainly been doing it a lot as part of the Navy life because I had to keep up with all my young people. They were a lot younger than I was, probably in better shape in those days, but I could not let them get out in front of me, and I didn't mind them being side by side with me, but being out in front of me was a no-no. It just wasn't going to let it happen, and I had to have that kind of endurance just to keep up with the day. So exercise is good, always good, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it so much. Today I want to talk to you about a little extension on Warriors, Hard Chargers, and Patriots, and add a couple pieces to the equation. Remember, we talked about Warriors, Hard Charger, or at least the Warrior piece and the Hard Charger and Patriots piece relative to my introduction to it with Admiral, then Captain Bear Taylor when he had Coral Sea, and how it just seemed to gel the mindset of the crew in terms of what they were about and what they were doing. And I decided that I wanted to use that as well for the ethos that we were trying to produce, both on Inchon and Carl Vinson. I just wanted to talk about that piece of it, but let's talk about the entire equation. So you got the ethos piece, which is the Warriors, Hard Chargers, and Patriots piece. And then you've got the oath that sailors take and officers take. And we used it both for enlistments and re-enlistments and for promotion ceremonies. And then you have the core values, probably the most fundamentally relevant set of core values I've ever been around and lived with. When you combine all those, what you get is our high performance organization. One of those pieces are missing. Either the ethos is missing, or people have not had a chance to correlate their core values to their oath, and you've got some sort of degradation there. And if you're in a high performance organization, especially where life and death are, it can be the results of your efforts or lack of effort, then you got to have everything going for you possible. So if you break down the warrior piece of it a little bit, we thought of, or I thought of it anyway, as two pieces. I thought of it as warriors and wizards. And the warriors, and so because you can have one or the other. There are a lot of people who are combative by nature and persistent by nature, but maybe haven't had the skills or the training or other things that have gotten in the way of them in actually able to combine that combative attitude with an ability to solve a problem on the run, in the fly, under stress, that sort of thing. And then you have people who are just really smart and book smart and or trained and had a ton of training, but haven't yet been in an environment where they appreciate the need for being able to be persistent and repel all borders. Those things combined, which is the middle of that Venn diagram, the sweet spot, is where we wanted to get everybody. Very few people, I don't know, a certain number of people came with all of those skill sets that made them warriors and wizards. But it really required just a lot of training and, again, connecting their dot to the bigger dot so that they were inspired to want to work on both elements of that warriorship. It was really important for them to work both elements of that warriorship. And so that was always our goal. And that's why we had a lot of conversations about it, right? So there are a lot of smart people who fulfilled the role and vice versa. So that's what I mean by a warrior. I consider both of those. My senior chief, for example, in HS 15, was certainly a warrior. There was not a more persistent man alive, but his experience in his numerous deployments, his 16 years of being in the Navy, of repairing, fixing, leading people who are repairing and fixing different pieces of equipment, brought him wizardry that gave him instant credibility in terms of trust and in terms that we could get something done and as required, innovate it, right? So the warriors piece was all about being combative. It would need to be combative. But more importantly, recognizing that there's conflict everywhere, recognizing that the conflict is persistent, and that you need a certain amount of clout and a certain amount of skill and a certain amount of discipline to repel those things, or at least to abate them as best you can. So that was just a mindset, but it was also a focus on where and how you applied your energy. And the wizardry part were people who could think outside the lines and could elevate your dreams on what the art of the possible is and give you options that you'd never thought of before with enthusiasm and energy, because they understood that you were looking for and wanting their input in this regard. And there was you had to make sure that they understood you wanted it. There were a lot of people that could be just sitting down in a berthing compartment saying, well, I could probably fix this for him, but he doesn't care. And we did everything we could, and I think we're relatively successful making sure that we recognized that we had a bunch of smart, young, inspired warriors out there who would just happen to have the skill sets to go do things creatively and innovatively like we'd never done them before. So it was the way it was, and it worked out exceptionally well. The hard charger piece is the mindset piece as well, builds a little bit on the warrior piece. But I loved calling somebody a hard charger, just reminding them that I recognized that they were in it with me, that if I was persistent, they were going to be persistent. They were not going to let me down. I was not going to let them down. We as a tribe flourished on each other's ability to expend as much energy and be as persistent as we needed to be to solve a problem, combat an opposing force, and make sure that we also helped our other shipmates be successful, because we needed everybody, or we were not going to be successful. The sum of the parts was going to be less than the whole if we didn't have everybody helping out. And the Patriot piece, well, that's what we were about, right? But I will suggest to you that everybody should be patriotic, and everyone needs to be a patriot. They ought to, they don't have to take an oath to anything for sure, but I think that that they ought to stand when the national anthem's played, and I think that they ought to put their hand on their heart, and they ought to learn the words to the national anthem. I love it when I see people singing the national anthem. I love it when I see our sailors, soldiers, airmen, Coast Guardsmen standing on the sideline of a stadium with a hand salute as sharp as you could possibly be. Patriotism is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's representative of the fact that you recognize that we're the greatest country on earth, and that you should want to make a deposit into this country via your efforts and invest in it, so that when it comes time to withdraw, you can withdraw, right? You can't make a withdrawal from the bank or until you made a deposit. So that's that sort of thing. The oath it's unique to what we do. Our previous CNO had made a comment in front of an audience one day that I thought was so relevant. That the oath is we take an allegiance to, not to a country or to a thing, including a country really necessarily, not to a thing though for sure. We don't take an allegiance to a person. We take an allegiance to an ideal, which is embedded in our country, right? So it's the ideal that we get out of our Constitution and the preamble that feeds that Constitution is the tactical peace parts. Now, it is probably the most seminal thing that we can spend time on with our sailors, and when possible, their families and their brothers and sisters, their moms and dads, or grandfathers and grandparents, and whoever else might want to attend a re-enlistment ceremony or promotion ceremony, because we spend a good deal of time on the oath. We make sure that every word counts. We make sure that everybody understands the essence of what is embedded in the preamble and in the well, not the Constitution so much, but the preamble. The preamble to me sort of describes tactically, what our charter is. So when we get ready to do that, we talk, and like I'm talking to you now, and we repeat this discussion. We look for people that maybe whose eyes are glazed over, and we make sure that they get it, because we want them to have the same exuberance, the same emotional connection that those of us were in this business already for some time have. And I wished everybody had this emotional attachment to the country that we work so hard to protect. Having the parents there was an eye-awakening moment for them. They didn't realize what their kids had signed up to do. I mean, they knew they joined the Navy, but they didn't have any idea really what they'd signed up to. And contextually, when we get into the core values piece, they're gonna appreciate the kind of character that these young men and women have presented in front of everybody else to support the oath that they've taken. So we would go through all of this, and I think that the day that I realized we finally got it was when one of we raise our right hand, we get right in front of each other, whoever the person is that's about to take the oath, and the administrator of that oath, and this one case, I raised my hand, getting ready to go through the oath with the young sailor, and he started the oath on his own. He had raised his hand. He started having he went through the oath with emotion, with voice inflection that indicated to me that he got it. And I thought, okay, we've arrived. We have arrived. And so that was important. But I want to go through the oath with you a little bit. I want to, and then talk about the piece parts a little bit, and then we'll get back and talk about its correlation to the core values. So when I raise my right hand, I say to you, and then I ask you to state your name. Do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the officers appointed over me, so help me God. And that's the way I say it, so help me God. It never gets old. It never got old. People will take those words, they'll hear it. I've had young men and women with tears in their eyes, and I have tears in my eyes almost every time that I gave the oath, and even right now I'm just a little bit emotionally enraptured in it, because it just reminds me of all the re-enlistments and promotion ceremonies that we went through, and the hugs and the thanks and the recognition that people are taking on a journey. They are truly making a deposit in this country, and without even thinking yet of any kind of withdrawal, right? It's just not, their bank account is full, is fat, based on the amounts of time and energy and action that they've taken for this country. So embedded in that is this preamble I was talking about. So when we swear an allegiance to the Constitution, and support and defend the Constitution, really what we're doing, at least in my eyes, is we're executing to the words of the preamble. And the words, the preamble starts with the words, we the people. I use we the people a lot in a lot of the posting I do, because, I just think that there's so much that should be about we the people that's not, in terms of how we're governed and everything. And I just think there are entities that forget about that part of it. It should be and is all about we the people. And when we would go on a deployment or into a combat action, it never lost my mind that I was there because I wanted to represent the country, but more importantly, more tactically, represent we the people. So the preamble went like this: we the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union. Now, in order to form a more perfect union, I never lost sight of the fact that we all recognize that we are not perfect, never will be perfect, but it is certainly a worthy goal, a worthy objective to get there, right? So that was again, the warrior piece came out. We were persistent. We recognized that there are a lot of forcing functions that were trying to not make us perfect and not make us good. And we were not going to be part of that group. We were going to oppose that with everything that we had. So it goes on to say, to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and then my favorite words, the words I hung my head on from day one when I read this preamble and really understood what it was about, was secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and for our posterity. Do hereby ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States of America. Now, we don't talk about this, I don't think, in schools anymore. And I just want to give kids a chance, really, to understand. I want everyone to have understand what our service people and other first responder people, things that we're swearing an allegiance to, an oath to, and the courage that it takes to do this job. And so all the sailors get it, and their families got it. So, we recognize that our audience was much bigger than just you and me, for example, if you're one of my crew members. It was, again, your family and their family's family and the relatives and the moms and dads. I told you just a couple minutes ago, I had moms and dads want to reaffirm the oath with their children after they heard it and after they understood it. And we would only let that happen after they memorized the oath. They had to be able to look the young man or woman in their eyes and have that kind of emotional attachment to it. So we were teaching as well as keeping, recognizing our sailors for their enlistment, re-enlistment / promotion. It didn't matter. And our audiences weren't small. We did this in front of 2,000 or 3,000 of our sailors at any one time. I mean, they wanted to be there, in my opinion, because their turn in the barrel was going to come, and they wanted to be supported by their shipmates as well. Just emotionally raises my emotions to the level of tears when I think about it. The third piece were the core values. Oh, I know what that was. The core values. Now, I've been around a lot of companies, done a lot of strategic plan analysis, done a lot of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats matrix work for some companies who are either being acquired or were acquired or are having a challenge with a competitive action. And, I always went and looked at the mission and the vision, the strategic objectives, but I viewed those core values as sort of the connecting tissue, if you will. And it was, to me, they've got to mean something. They've got to be applicable to a person's work, to a person's connection as a little dot to the big dot. And if those core values can then be even translated to how they live their life outside of the tribe, which is their company or their ship, whatever their work entity is, then more power to you. And so when I looked at honor, courage, and commitment, I looked at it in a couple of venues. Some of our young people come to the service with not much of a family background at all, or they have other challenges going on, and they've not ever thought of core values for themselves. And so we would always talk about this as well, and this would be part of that dialogue. When you raise your right hand, you say, "I solemnly swear." This is all about your honor. This is where you basically are giving your word that you're going to do something you promised to do. And, if you take that honor and you extend it outside of the ship or the squadron or whichever the unit is, then it applies to your family life. And we because we were a sort of a contained unit, we always made sure that everyone that was in that audience, be it a family member, mom or dad, but certainly the sailor who's standing in front of you or in front of me, understood that this honor just doesn't stop the minute you get off the ship. It doesn't stop. It's no longer important, the minute you leave a hangar. It is how you apply your life with regard to your children and your other activities, your other tribes that you might be a member of. So there's a direct translation of that core value to the ability to take that oath and live up to that oath, but also how to live your life, right? So courage to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Now, the old movie, I can't remember the movie right now, but the point here is you really want these men and women on the wall, right? These people are willing to go onto that wall for you. They don't know many of you. If they don't know, they're serving in combat environments in countries that they've never lived in and don't know people in those countries. They're doing whatever the President of the United States and his organization demand that they do. So it takes a lot of courage to do that, and to believe that your leadership team is gonna live up to their promise to make sure that you have an objective and to give you all the tools that you need to get the job done. The counter to that is that means that the people who are supposed to deliver the goods and provide the end objective need to be succinct and not lose the trust, right? Not lose the trust of those young men and women. This is the most perishable asset that we have. I don't want to ever see my young men or women feel like that they're not being taken care of, because they just had the courage to go out and say, I'll do whatever it takes to support and defend this country. And the commitment piece, that I obey the orders of the President of the United States and the officers appointed over me. That's giving. That's sort of like just saying, hey, listen, whatever I have to do. That can be blind faith and blind trust. But again, if our leadership teams don't live up to this and give these young men and women everything they need, including the fiscal support and all the things that they deserve, then we're going to lose that. Once you lose trust, then the three-legged stool is going to fall over, because the respect and loyalty that are the other two legs of that stool just start to dwindle away. And then you start having retention problems and other things that go along with it, in my humble opinion, right? So that's really, it's all of that, right? To go back, loyal warriors, hard chargers, patriots, plus the oath, plus the core values, interconnected in so many different ways, are what tightened the bonds that we had as a tribe, and what made us so successful. And to this day, we talk about these things. I have conversations with many of these young men and women, these heroes, still heroes in my mind, every day. So I'm asking people who are maybe not attached to a service, don't have a serviceman, a son or daughter or significant other, to think about how they can up their game as well. Take a look at that preamble to the Constitution. Ask how you're perhaps helping, or at least not getting in the way of those that are trying to help. That's important. I love sailors. I love soldiers. I love airmen. I love Marines. Love everybody that's serving. I love our first responders. All of these people are about selfless service. And in one form or another, they've got core values that matter, I suspect. And whether they take the oath that I just read to you or not, they're aspiring to be part of the solution with respect to the tactical actions that are spoken to in the preamble. That's today's message. I love all you guys. I'll be back in the pool tomorrow. The next time we get together, I'm trying to get an interview with a young man that started out as an E1 and retired as an 06, so you can get sort of a lifespan a lesson about how this person aspired to stay in the Navy, first of all, and what he learned, both good and bad, right? And there are lessons from the bad side as well. And if we don't do that, we're going to talk about what I thought were the fundamental elements of leadership that allowed us to do what we just talked about, to instill those values that we just talked about, and the frequency that we did it, and the personal touch that was required. This is not something you can do on YouTube. This is not something you can do via social media. This is not something you can do with a movie camera in front of you. This has got to be your visceral reaction to what we're talking about in front of people. They have to see it. They have to see your arms moving. In my case, I was probably jumping up and down. But they have to see it coming from you. Love you all. Have a great day, and God bless America.